Good morning, YouTubers, and welcome once again to the Eastern Wing of the Stink Bug Works, where you're going to receive another unscripted, unedited, unrehearsed, unwarranted, but hopefully informative video. Anyway, the last time I talked, I said I might put a bend in this turn fin, and that's exactly what I did. In fact, here is the old stock turn fin, and what I did was mill a groove in a piece of Delrin. God, I like this stuff. And put this in the arbor press and squish down on it, and bingo, you got a bent turn fin. And I hung that on there, and I said, that looks kind of small, and this thing's kind of hefty. We'll talk about that in a second. So I had this bigger turn fin, so I bent it and hung it on. And now we're going to talk about how to make sure your turn fin's square. But first, let's talk about the weight. This thing with these really big batteries, these 3,500 milliamp batteries, this thing's pretty hefty. But I needed the batteries to get it to balance, because even with these big suckers up there, it's just a little bit aft of the original design, but I'm also a little bit longer in my overall length, and I've got a little bit more power, and I can run a bit more lift on the prop, so I can get away with the CG being a tiny bit back. I'm not worried about that. But when I picked this thing up with this battery in it, it's like, oh, this sucker's hefty. And I thought for a minute this might be overkill, and that I'd put a smaller battery in and move the speed control up forward. But I got to thinking, this thing was originally designed to run with 6 NiCad cells, which is about this big. And so I'm really not much over its original design weight. So I'll run it with these the first time out, and we'll see how it goes. So let's talk about squaring up your turn fin. If your imagine this is a turn fin. If your turn fin is tilted back, why, you get a whole bunch of rudder, more or less, pushing the boat this way. If it's tilted too far forward, you get a whole bunch of rudder pulling the boat that way. And in fact, you can fine tune some left and right, and that's what I'm doing on that twisted Chinese thing, is I'm fine tuning this to compensate for that. So you want to start out with your angle here neutral. Now, how do you do that? Well, when you have a building board, or in this case, this little grid board will suffice, because this factory stand is accurate enough for starting points on a turn fin. And so you want to make sure your turn fin is parallel to your line of travel. So essentially, my hull is in the line of travel, and if you very carefully, slide this up against here. Now, I have this weighted down with a pretty sizable weight, and you can see I'm pretty square with my direction of travel right there. So I'm going to call this good. I actually worked on it quite a bit to get it there. But so you can see I'm not trying to cheat it. I'm just giving it the least little bit. So if anything, it looks like it's tilted this way, pulling me that way. So I could compensate for that by moving the aft edge forward ever so slightly. And now, well, I see it just took that out. And I only moved it forward a 32nd of an inch at the lowest point. So it doesn't take much when you're getting in the final thing. So there, that looks pretty square to my line of travel. So I'll snug that down, and we'll call it good. And I'll see you out on the lake tomorrow with those big, huge batteries. I hope this sucker doesn't sink. The only flotation I have is these are hollow. There's no flotation in here at all. So I will assemble the rescue boat first before putting this on the water. Lesson learned. Until then, jet out.